DINYL Nation, Dialysis is not your life nation, second chance family. Listen, we're excited today. We're excited today. We have an awesome show on tonight. Welcome to On Your Mark, Reset, Go. We're glad to have you here today. I do want to say I apologize. We had a little mix up going on with the time schedule with Dr. Omar and Dr. Nader and myself. So we're excited today. We're going to get going and have everything rolling and going. I do just want to give a shout out today. I do want to take this time and I do for those who believe in prayer. Fred, it's not me, but another Fred friend that I have, he's actually in the hospital and he's been stabilized. And so if you could, I'll just call his name out in prayer today, because I do believe in prayer. And I do believe that this right here, this show On Your Mark, Reset, Go, is about healing. And so just remember him, he and his family. He's in the hospital with that. So I'm excited today. Excited. Again, welcome to On Your Mark, Reset, Go. This right here is a session for the kidney disease dialysis community, their patients, family. And understand it's not just for people who are on dialysis, but for anybody in whatever experience that you're dealing with in life, to understand that your circumstance does not determine your future, your outcome, or even define who you are right now. It's just a season of what you go through, come through out on the other side. So I'm excited today. I am your host, Fred Hill. I'm your host today. So we're excited. Myself, I was on dialysis for 3 years, hemo and peritoneal for me. And now I have a kidney transplant from 2015. And so we're on the go. We're ready to make moves and continue to move. And so we're here as an advocate we're just excited. And today we have, I did say we had Dr. Omar Davis. But understand he's not with us. He's actually teaching today. He's teaching today in a teaching seminar. So we're excited today that he did send his colleague today, Dr. Mark Nader. So we're excited to have him today. And I want to read his bio before we come on. Nader received his bachelor's in biology from the American University in Beirut, his medical degree at the University of Balaman in Lebanon. He completed his internal medicine residency at Inglewood Hospital in New Jersey, affiliated with Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, and his nephrology and hypertension fellowship at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. He's a board certified in nephrology and internal medicine. Dr. Nader joined Kidney Care Consultants in 2015 and has been practicing nephrology since then. And so I want to welcome to the stage, everyone, Dr. Nader. Dr. Nader, how you doing, sir? It's glad to have you here today.
Thanks a lot, Fred. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm really excited that you're raising awareness about this topic, about kidney disease.
Yes, sir.
I'm very excited about that.
It's really good, man. I really appreciate it, man. Myself, it's my story being on dialysis myself for 3 years. I have a kidney transplant now. But the whole thing is understanding that dialysis is not easy. And I can say this as you being a nephrologist. I just want to say thank you. I tell everyone the doctor is doctoring the diagnosis. But when it comes to us as patients, it is up to us to live our lives, to go and live, get your energy back, enjoy your life, the children, go and do big things in life. Even though you're on dialysis is not a death sentence, but understand it's a second chance at life. And so for me, if it wasn't there, I wouldn't be here today. So I'm so excited for you and your work. Dr. Nader. Thank you so much, so much, so
Thanks,
much.
Fred.
Let me before we get started. I gave the introduction. Just tell everybody as they coming in about yourself and anything that's not written on here. Some different things. Just kind of talk about yourself for a moment.
Yeah, yeah, I come from Lebanon. My parents are Lebanese, but I kind of lived everywhere. I was born in Cyprus, lived in France. I'm Canadian too, and finally I've been living in the US, and I love it here. Um, I chose nephrology, it was really, I felt in love with nephrology in my last year of med school. I was doing this elective rotation, and that's when I discovered, like, I actually used to hate nephrology. It was such a difficult topic, and most of the medical students didn't like it at that time. And so when I did this elective, it was like mind blowing. I finally realized like my passion, and it's such an amazing field,
Wow.
where you have all this alchemy, this it's such a beautiful field of medicine that is ongoing,
Yeah.
and that keeps evolving, and I'm hoping one day we will get to the ultimate phase where we won't need any dialysis, and where
Wow.
we'll be able to grow and have kidneys ready for all the patients so that no one will ever need any dialysis.
Hey, that's awesome. So, I want to, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and ask then, since we're right here. I'm gonna jump in right now. So,
Let's do
what
it.
are the different things that's are there some different things that's actually coming for people who are on dialysis to kind of make it easier? Different things, changes that's actually on the way. I've heard of some, what is it? A synthetic kidney. I've heard that that's being in the making some years down the road. But are there some things that's going on that's going to make kidney us people dialysis and everything a little easier, a little better for us?
So, for us, the field of nephrology was really not moving much in the past 50 years. Like, we had the same dialysis concept, but it's really over the past 10 years that we're starting to see more technological advancements. And people are really working now on how to devise better dialysis machines that will be more cost effective, more easily accessible to people, and more importantly, that will give you a much better quality of life to
Yeah.
the patients. And so we have the home modalities that are becoming uh, like much easier with time. Like, you have a better interface. They're becoming much easier to learn on how to use those dialysis machines. Now, of course, I know Vanderbilt and I think in California they're working on those portable dialysis devices,
Okay.
uh, but it's not yet out there. But it's definitely something to keep a close eye in the future. Uh,
I
yeah.
think that's a really good thing. I know for me personally, I was on dialysis in 2012. So when I was on dialysis, we didn't have all the group things. We didn't have the advocacy like myself and others. It's really out here now. I know it was the National Kidney Foundation during that time. But being now in this place, the awareness that I think that's for me, the awareness for kidney disease and dialysis and trying to understanding the stages of kidney disease and those different things, the awareness, I think that's for me. I'm trying to push this and make it bigger because, when you think about cancer and ALS and different other types of diseases, they have a lot of push and support. Is actually in your face. And so for me, that's one thing that I want to push. I want to read this from Elizabeth Sterling. Says Vanderbilt. I'm gonna put this so you can see this. It says Vanderbilt and UCFS have been working for years on the bionic kidney. Wow, thank you, Elizabeth Sterling. I appreciate that. That's absolutely amazing. I can't wait till that comes. That's absolutely amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So I want to go to a commercial real quick, Dr. Nader, and
Yeah,
then we're gonna jump right into questions. And for those who are watching, I do want to give a shout out and thanks for Amanda and Frank Mays, Ashley Wideman, Verna Johnson, Elizabeth Sterling. I appreciate you guys are watching today. And Verna said awareness is the key to treatment. So we're really going to jump into all of this in just a minute. I want to go to a commercial and then we'll be right back. And we're going to just, if you have any questions for Dr. Nader as we watching, put them in the comments and so we can go from there. All right, commercial will be right back. Dialysis is not your life. The book and workbook by international author Fred Hill is available on Amazon.com. The power to redefine your life while on dialysis. Dialysis is a second chance at life. So what are you doing with this chance? I know that dialysis is challenging. I was on dialysis for 3 years, hemo and peritoneal. But you can still live a high quality, fulfilled life while on dialysis. You can get your energy back, your confidence and sex life back. Still go after your dreams and live your life out loud while on dialysis. The book teaches you that dialysis is not the end for you. It is possible to live and enjoy life. The workbook takes you step by step to make it all a reality. This book and workbook are helping and changing the lives of dialysis patients across the globe. So go to Amazon.com, order the book and workbook, and get your life back. Life is waiting on you. Okay, we're back. Dr. Nader, we're gonna jump in with some questions and just feel free how you go. We're gonna flow today. There's no real pattern this right here. We're just gonna flow and how we go. But can you break down the 5 stages of kidney failure?
sure. I don't like to use the term kidney failure just because it sounds scary for the patients
Okay.
and honestly that classification of kidney of kidney disease is not very important from a nephrology standpoint. I think patients they like to use it just because it gives them something structured or just for them to understand where they stand in terms of that kidney disease classification. But for me as a nephrologist, I don't find it very important
Okay.
or useful. Now, the classification is based on the filtration rate of the kidneys. So you see, we have each one of us, when we're born with a set number of filters within each kidney. We have about 1 million filters. And the cumulative effect of all these filters together, they clean your blood when you're born at a rate of 120 milliliter per minute.
Okay.
Now, after the age of 20, all of us, we start losing 1 to 2% of our filters every year.
Wow.
So after the age of 20, all of us, we have a natural decline in our kidney function. Now, based on that number, when it's above 90 milliliter per minute, we consider it CKD stage 1. When it's between 60 to 90, we are classified as having chronic kidney disease stage 2. Stage 3 is divided into A and B. A is when it's between 45 to 60% or 60 milliliter per minute. And 3B is when it's between 30 to 45. Stage 4 is when the kidney filtration is between 15 to 30. And stage 5 is when it's really below 15 milliliter per minute.
Wow. Wow. So let me ask this. And so, like you said, the actual the kidney stages, you say that's not the important thing. That's basic for us as patients to know where we stand. So the question I want to ask, so when do you as a nephrologist advise the patient, okay, it's time for you to go on dialysis?
Okay. I personally, I do not put my patients on dialysis just based on the numbers.
Okay.
So it's really very important to know that we don't treat numbers. And at the end of the day, the whole purpose of doing dialysis is to improve the quality of life of someone. So as long as a patient is having a decent quality of life, is not having any major symptoms that is impeding their life, there is no need to rush into dialysis. So as long as the patient is enjoying his life, able to do the things that he normally does, we just monitor. But what I like to focus in that time is really to focus on referral for transplant, and also to educate him as much as possible about the indications and the future, the different types of dialysis, so that the day he starts having symptoms, at least he is ready mentally, and and can make a choice
Okay.
in regards to dialysis. So I have patients who have a GFR of 4 and 5, and I don't have them on dialysis. And I have other patients who have a GFR of maybe 15 or 18, and they're very symptomatic, and we start them on dialysis.
Wow. Wow. I really didn't know that. I know for me, I waited until I was like, it was my BUN numbers were really high. And so for me, I didn't have any symptoms, but the doctors were telling me I should be sick, 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 really sick. But I had no symptoms, no swelling. I was still urinating, everything I'd had. But one day I got dizzy. I was so dizzy and it wouldn't go away. I think it lasts, the dizziness for me, it felt like it lasted like an hour, but I believe it was like 10 minutes. It was really bad. And so at that point, my doctor was telling me that my body was at the point of shutting down. And so then I said, okay, it's time for me to get on dialysis at that point. But I guess for me, I was living and I was still working, doing my thing and all of that. But to hear what you're saying, I think that means a whole lot for the people who are watching or who will watch, because it means something, like you said, is your quality of life of how you living. Which brings that determination when it's time to go on dialysis. And you also said that you do referrals for kidney transplant. So let me ask this. So is it possible to get a referral for a kidney transplant or get on the list before going on dialysis?
Absolutely, and everybody who knows that they have advanced kidney disease or are heading toward dialysis, that should be the first thing. Because remember, our goal for most of the patients is eventually to be able to get a kidney transplant. So that should be our ultimate goal. And dialysis might be one of the way to keep you as healthy as possible
Yes.
until we're able to achieve that goal.
Okay. Okay.
Now, of course, there's a lot of other patients who unfortunately also do not meet criteria to getting a kidney transplant. Like they
Right.
may be either very obese or maybe much older. But in that case, dialysis is really as a mean to keep them comfortable and keep them, again, to have a decent quality of life.
Wow. I think that's absolutely awesome. One thing Elizabeth Sterling said, she said she had her AV fistula placed in 3 weeks ago for hemodialysis. Said she's at 15% just to get going, to be able to avoid CV. 10% is when the team prefers her to start. I think that's pretty cool. But let me ask this question as well, because you were talking about how some people may not qualify for the kidney transplant because of maybe being obese. Or so let me ask this. So what are some things? So for those who are listening, what are some things that they need to be focusing on to qualify for a kidney transplant, whether they're on dialysis or, like Elizabeth Sterling, while they're in waiting? What are some things that they can begin focusing on?
Transplant is also not an easy process. I mean, you had it, so you know that the first 6 months after a transplant, it's going to be a very big hit on the body. You're lowering your whole immunity. You're going to be on at least 6 to 8 medications.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of follow-ups. It can have a lot of emotional, physical, and psychological impact on a patient. So you want to make sure that the patient, before heading to transplant, is ready and healthy enough to withstand any complication that may occur with transplant. And hopefully nothing occurs,
Yes.
but it's something that we have to take in consideration, because again, when people is donating when someone is donating an organ, it's something very valuable, and we want to do our best for that organ that's being donated to function and preserve it
Yes.
as long as possible. So so that's why it's important to have a healthier weight. So usually it depends between one transplant center to the other, but usually a BMI, I think between 38 to 40 is what's required.
Okay.
It's important, of course, to have a good cardiac function, or at least a strong heart. So that's why they send patients to get cardiac cath and stress test evaluations prior to the surgery. It's important also to have a good vasculature, because they're going to be where they're going to be connecting that allograft kidney. It's going to be very important that the vessels of the patient, uh, that the patient has good vessels to
Yes.
allow adequate flow to that kidney. So this is something that they take in consideration. Of course, also avoiding smoking,
That's good.
not drinking alcohol. All these are also very important. Cancer, also, a patient has to be at least 1 to 2 year cancer free, uh, because the transplant medication themselves can predispose you to have certain type of cancers, especially skin cancer. Um, and of course, also psychological evaluation is very important. You want to make sure that the patient who's going to get the kidney transplant is someone who has been compliant with his medication, who has been compliant with the dialysis treatment. Uh, because again, you want to make sure that he's going to take his medications after transplant and avoid rejection.
I think one
Well,
thing that you,
some of the few
I'm
things.
sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Don't let me cut you off. Go
You
ahead.
know, so these are just some of the few things that are really important.
I just I want to kind of add to, I guess, piggyback, if you would, because you
Sure,
said
sure.
something that was really big, that a lot of times that as patients, when we're on dialysis, sometimes we feel like we want to do what we want to do, or however, and then expect to get the kidney transplant of those things. But you said something, being compliant with medications and being compliant with treatments. It means everything in being able to get the kidney transplant, because you may be at the weight and your heart and everything may check out fine, but if you're not compliant, that can hold you back from getting the kidney transplant. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because it means everything working with your doctor and your nephrologist, and doing what you're supposed to do, whether it be eating, whether it be doing the exercising, losing the weight, being on top of everything with your health. And one thing that I do want to say, if you, I want you to back this up if I'm right, if I'm wrong or right, but it comes to a place to where I think, as patients, we need to be in a place to where we tell the nephrologist everything that's going on, the struggles of those different things, and then also being in a place to where whatever the doctor is saying, ask whatever question. I mean, ask whatever question in order for you as a patient to have the best treatment and to have the best whatever, so that you can have the best quality of life and be compliant that you can get your kidney.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Well,
the
let me
patient
let me ask, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. And also regarding transplant, I just want to state this. A lot of my patients ahead of time, I push them to consider all these measures for weight loss. Uh, like before we had all these incretins and all these new medications for weight loss, I used to push them to get bariatric surgery or to consider bariatric surgery. But now we have all the new injections, And I
Mhm.
really push them to talk to their primary care physician and to discuss with them about those weight loss strategies, along with exercise and diet, but also the new medications uh, are like Monjaro, for example, Ozempic,
Yes,
are really making a big difference and are really helping the patients to lose weight. And by losing weight, this will certainly allow you to delay further progression of your kidney disease. But more importantly, it will allow you also to become eligible for a kidney transplant.
that's good. Well, let me ask this question, and this is so: if a person, is it possible for a person on dialysis to have um, is that the bariatric surgery to where they put the thing around the stomach? Can they have that surgery and be on dialysis at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can have the gastric sleeve. So usually we start like with dieting, with exercise, and with the pharmacologic treatment of weight loss. Now, ultimately, when those three things fail, that's when we will consider bariatric surgery. And the
Okay,
bariatric surgeon will be really the one to determine what would be the most optimal form of surgery, whether a gastric sleeve, gastric banding, or gastric bypass for those patients. But there are absolutely no contraindication for a dialysis patient to get weight loss surgery.
wow,
Uh, the only contraindication I might think of would be if they're very frail to get into surgery, like if they have a lot of heart problems or someone is very malnourished, maybe those would not be good candidates anyway for transplant.
okay.
But for the most of the healthier dialysis patient, I don't see any problem with proceeding with those form of surgeries if they need it.
Oh, okay. That's my first time hearing that. I didn't know that. But let me ask this question right here. Is there a different as before they go on dialysis as a nephrologist? Is there a different doctoring, if you would, uh, towards someone with polycystic kidney disease versus someone that may have the kidney is failing for other reasons, whether it's acute or whether it's damage from drugs or whatever? Is there a different path of how you doctor someone with polycystic versus the other issues with kidney disease?
Right. There's a lot of common similarities in the management of polycystic kidney disease and, let's say, diabetic or hypertensive. But at the same time, because of the pathophysiology of polycystic kidney disease, there's on top of what we do for diabetic and people with hypertension, there's also other things that we focus on. So the main problem in polycystic kidney disease is a mutation in a protein called the cilia that leads to the formation of those cysts that start growing from small tubules that are connected to the filters.
Yes.
And over time, those cysts, they start growing and growing into the tissue of the kidney,
Wow.
eventually distorting the architecture, and that's what leads to failure. Now, depending on the type of mutation, some people with polycystic kidney disease will have a much more aggressive disease. And this is really related to the rate of expansion of those cysts.
Okay.
Now, we don't yet fully know the full spectrum of interplay that leads to the cyst formation. But one important factor that we have realized it over the past 20 years is that there is a receptor called ADH, which promotes the absorption of water inside of those cysts.
Okay.
And so the more water you absorb into those cysts, the larger the cyst and the faster it will expand.
Okay.
And so nowadays we have a new treatment called tolvaptan, which basically will block that receptor and reduce the amount of fluid going into the cyst, reducing further progression.
Wow.
Now, it doesn't cure the polycystic kidney disease because we're not treating the cause of the disease, but
Okay.
it certainly help reduce the progression. And it can buy, based on the studies, it can buy at least 5 more years for
Wow.
people. And 5 years is a lot without dialysis.
Yes, it is.
The other things that we is very important for people who have polycystic kidney disease is definitely start seeing a kidney doctor early on. Don't wait till you start having kidney problems. Prevention is the most important thing, and the sooner you start those preventing measures, the better the chance of delaying CKD. And those preventive measures include a very strict blood pressure control. So you really need to have the blood pressure in the range of 110 to 120.
That's good.
So I really push my patients to keep their systolic, the upper number, to keep it closer to the 110. Drinking a lot of fluid is very important, and to
Okay.
drink at least 2 liters of fluid throughout the day, and to try to keep as much as possible a very dilute urine. And the reason for this is by drinking a lot of water, you actually can help suppress the production of the ADH hormone that
Hmm.
stimulate the uptake of water inside of the kidney cysts.
Wow.
So, watching your salt intake is very important because those kidneys, people with polycystic kidney disease, the configuration of their kidneys will tend to make them to absorb and retain much easier the amount of salt,
Yeah.
and by retaining salt, you're retaining more fluid, and you're also causing your blood pressure to go up. Um, it's very important also for people with polycystic kidney disease to try to also study the genealogy of if someone else in their family had it, if someone in their family had for example, a hemorrhage in the brain.
Wow.
So if that happened, then it's very important that they also be screened with either a CTA or an MRA of the brain to make sure that they don't have an aneurysm in the
Mm.
brain. People with polycystic kidney disease will also have liver problems, so they can develop liver failure because just like you have kidney cyst, you will also have liver cyst. You can also have some certain cardiac abnormalities. You can be more predisposed to also have diverticulosis and diverticulitis. So it does have an extra renal component and dimension to it that is also important for the nephrologist to discuss it with the patient and refer him to the specialist when we suspect those things. But from a kidney standpoint, controlling the blood pressure, uh, doing an MRI to assess the progression
Okay.
and the rate of increase of those cysts, and accordingly decide if you will benefit from getting the treatment called tolvaptan or not. Drinking plenty of fluids, at least 2 liters per day, and making sure you have a dilute urine, and maintaining a healthy weight. All these are very important.
That's good. That's really good to know. That's really so while we're talking about that, another question I have. So do you prefer a certain eating regimen for people who are on dialysis versus kidney disease? Because I've heard of certain nephrologists, they desire their patients to be vegans. So whether they're on dialysis or not, but if they have kidney disease, they want them to be vegans. And so what is your take on that?
Right. I don't think we have clear evidence that reducing the protein intake is beneficial, but I do, in theory, I do recommend. I mean, I do recommend to most of my patients who have CKD
Hmm.
to eat healthier and to have a more balanced diet, focusing more on fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and reducing the amount of protein, especially red meat. Now, how much to reduce the amount of protein? It's the studies that have shown some benefit. These were people who had a very low amount of protein. I think it was like 0.6 gram per kilogram per day. So it's a very restricted amount of protein. And it's very difficult to really achieve such a level of low protein. But in theory, the idea behind it is that proteins will be converted to acid, and then the filters of the kidney will actually have to work harder to get rid of that acid. And through that process, that will lead to something called fibrosis within the proximal tubule. And that's the idea behind having kidney disease. The other thing is uh, we think that a high protein diet will cause hyperfiltration, which means that it will cause more pressure within the filters of the kidneys, and that's not a healthy thing for the filters. That can damage the kidney. The other thing is also, in theory, especially when you eat animal protein or red meat, especially the hemoglobin, like the blood that contains hemoglobin, it also contains oxidants and iron, and that can cause oxidative stress, and can lead also to certain damage at the level, at the microscopic level of the kidney, leading to chronic kidney disease. So yes, low protein diet is important for patients on CKD. I cannot tell you how much, but I would recommend to really focus more on eating fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, Mediterranean type of diet, olive oil, and just try to reduce the amount of protein, especially animal and red meat in
Yeah.
particular.
I think with that, and I always say it's how bad do you want to live? And I teach this as training and all, because what you do, how you eat, how you live, how you exercise or not exercise is what you're going to be dealing with 10 years from now because of your choices today. And
Exactly.
so I think that means for a whole lot, coming to you, understanding when you look around to see the children, your spouse, your family. So how do you want to be 10 years from now? That's how I always look. You can say like 5 years from now, like you said, some things that can prolong someone from going on dialysis for another 5 years. And 5 years is a long time to enjoy and do and live your life. I think that's absolutely awesome. I want to ask this question for those, because there's some people that's been watching and asking the question, dealing with high blood pressure and with diabetes. I mean, and I do know that some people who watch the show, some have high blood pressure and then some have diabetes, and they eat how they want to eat. They do what they want to do, don't want to exercise or however. I really would love for you to just the importance of doing right by your blood pressure and by with diabetes, because it can cause, I mean, I don't know why people feel that it's not going to happen to me. Yeah, I don't know. But if
Yeah.
you could, can you just emphasize that the importance of making sure you're right with diabetes and make sure things are right with high blood pressure?
Right, absolutely. Uh, Before I jump into specifically hypertension and diabetes, I always tell my patient that there's a difference between pleasure and happiness.
Good.
Food may give you pleasure, but it's just something instantaneous, and it will go away within an instant. But happiness, it's something that is much more valuable. And food, the things that you enjoy, or those bad habits that one can do, and nobody is perfect. We all have our bad habits, but these will not give you the happiness, and that
Yes.
is something important to be mindful about. Now, diabetes and hypertension are the most common cause of people ending up on dialysis. And so, unless we fix the root of the problem, which is to fix high blood pressure and diabetes, we're not going to be able to prevent the damage that will happen to the kidneys. And more importantly, what a lot of people do not realize is that unfortunately we do not have any medication to reverse the injury that happened to the kidneys.
That's good.
Once, like I said, all of us after the age of 20, we start losing naturally 1 to 2% of our filters. So if on top of that we add the effect of high blood pressure and diabetes, the rate of loss will be much faster.
Ah,
And there are no medication to regrow those filters. So those filters that we have are really precious, and we really have to do our best to preserve them as much as possibly, so they can last as long as possible and delay as much as possible from getting to kidney disease.
yes.
And the number of filters is not only determined by like there's also a lot of factors that determine the numbers of filters we are born with. Some people who are born premature will be born with a lesser number of filters,
Wow.
and those people will probably develop hypertension and kidney disease much sooner because of that lower number of filters. People who are born with one kidney, or who may end up losing a kidney during their lifetime, they also are losing a precious number of filters.
Wow.
It doesn't mean that they're going to end up on dialysis, but it shows that it's going to be more important to even be more mindful about things like diabetes and hypertension, so you
Yes.
can preserve those remaining filters. Now, diabetes, when the sugar goes high, that sugar, as it goes through the filters of the kidney, those network of capillaries that are in the filter, the higher the sugar load, it will get oxidized and metabolized into something called AGE, or advanced glycation end product. And that material will start depositing within the tissue of that filter, and eventually it will distort the architecture of the filter and will damage the filter irreversibly, and that's when you start having kidney problem. You will also have inflammation that will happen at the level of the filter because of the very high amount of sugar load, and that will also eventually affect the vessels, and that's when you start having like tighter vessels. And by
Wow.
tightening your vessels, your kidneys are not getting enough blood flow, and so over time you start losing your kidney function. With the high blood pressure, it's the same thing. Now, the high blood pressure is a little bit more trickier because high blood pressure causes kidney disease, but also kidney disease will lead to high blood pressure.
That's
So it
good.
becomes like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And so definitely it's very important to do your best to control the high blood pressure and the diabetes, uh, and to find one way or the other to be on top of it.
Now, with that as well, now this I'm asking this, so like you say, the high blood pressure and diabetes works, but together it can cause cardiac issues, right? Or am I off?
Absolutely. When you have kidney disease, it will affect almost every other organ. When you have kidney disease, the kidneys will start retaining more salt and water. This will expand your volume. That expansion of volume causes high blood pressure. That high blood pressure and that amount of volume that is added as a load to your heart,
Yeah.
over time the heart, to compensate, it will become hypertrophic, and will start getting thicker and thicker, to the point where eventually it will start giving up, and that's when you start having heart failure, congestive heart failure.
I
and
think that I think I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Don't let me cut you off. Go ahead.
and also the inflammation that happen at the level of the vessels of the kidney, it also, the same thing happened at the level of all the vessels, from the brain to the heart to all the vessels of the body. So it's really a systemic disease,
Wow.
and it's really all related.
I think what you said, if it doesn't, I really pray because like you said, it's a systemic disease. So it basically affects everything. And so, like what you said before, it's not wait until the symptoms get bad before you show up, because you think it's just uh, uh, high blood pressure, but it could be diabetes, kidney parts, and dealing with cardiac once you get there. And so I think it's very, very important to watch your health, how you eat, make sure that you're exercising. Dr. Nader, I really appreciate the information that you're giving, because I really, really, I pray that those who are watching really see the importance. The importance. One thing Jonathan says, he said, yes, high sugars destroy the kidneys, the leading cause of CKD. Jonathan, it's good to have. He's from Texas. He's doing great things as well. And he'll be on to tell his story, hopefully this year as well, because he dealt with the same thing, actually found himself in the hospital, kidney failure, all of those different things because of not doing what was needed to be done, and ended up on dialysis just right away. And so I think this right here, I appreciate you for really sharing and letting us know. I think this is absolutely awesome. I got
one thing I want to say, I want to add.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want patients to think, something that I focus a lot on my patients, especially when they come to me with advanced kidney disease or on dialysis already. It's very important for them to know not to give up and not to feel guilty about what happened in the past.
That's good.
Where, again, no one is perfect, and whatever happened already happened. We cannot just stick on what happened in the past. We need to start moving forward and positivize things and find ways to how we're going to improve and how we're going to change to the better. Even if that means to go through dialysis, even if that means to have to deal with the whole thing about dialysis, medications, blood pressure control, the change in diet and in lifestyle, it's okay. All these things, we can work on it. We can do it. And all the patients can do it. They just need to find the right motivation and to remember that they're not alone. We are all here to help them. And I'm really happy that I found you today, Fred. I'm going to start telling my patients about you. Wow. and about the website.
Thank you so much.
It's really important for them to keep that light and not to give up.
On that note, I want to hit a commercial, and then we're going to come right back. Like you said, have the right motivation and the right support and not wanting to give up. We're going to do a quick commercial, and we'll be right back, okay, with Dr. Nader. If you have your questions, please put them in the comments for me. We'll be right back.
Being diagnosed with kidney disease or being on dialysis can be devastating mentally, physically, and emotionally, not only for the patient but for their families. Reset Life Counseling, LLC is here to help you through the mental stages of uncertainty. Our program is designed to teach coping skills, social care, grief counseling, and life skills to help the patient, their families, and caregivers learn more about their roles and countermeasures of kidney disease. Our goal is to counsel, coach, and empower each client to regain their health and redefine their lives. Fred Hill, the founder and CEO of Reset Life Counseling, LLC, is a former dialysis patient. He is a kidney transplant recipient and an advocate for dialysis. We have individual, family, and group sessions available. Go to dialysisisnotyourlife.com and click on resources to find out more, or call 864-256-1591 for a free consultation. It's never too late to reset your life.
Okay, we're back. With what you said, and that's the reason why I wanted to put that commercial there, because dialysis it can be really hard on the patient mentally, and so what do you? I'm trying to say how my wife gave me this question about how do you go about um, motivating or getting the patients to talk. I know for me, that's what I do. I counsel people who are on dialysis and their family, because when I was on dialysis, no one asked my wife, how are you doing? Nobody asked my son, how are you doing? But it's not just the patient going through, but the whole family is going through.
Exactly.
So how do you encourage your patients that hey, like you said, you're not alone. You're not alone in this.
You know, it's a whole process, and that's why it's very important to start it way before dialysis. So that's why I really take a lot of time to educate my patients, and oftentimes I tell them to bring their families with them, because you know it's not only the patient, it's the patient and the family. It's gonna be, we need the whole family and the whole team of nurses and doctors to be as one unit in when it comes to dialysis. So before I start dialysis, I do educate them a lot about it, about the indications. I make sure to make them understand that I don't want them to be on dialysis, that I really want them to feel much better, to be much better. And if I can get them to get a kidney transplant before I get them on dialysis, this is my ultimate goal. So, so I think by creating that rapport with the patient, they already feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then most of the time with my patients, uh, because I empower them, and I like for them to tell me when they feel is the time for dialysis.
Yes.
And so a lot of the time, they will actually call me and tell me, you know what, doctor, I thought about it. I think I'm ready to start it. What should I do?
Wow.
And that's when we start with the process. The other thing is the fear of the unknown is also a big factor into why those people are scared. And it's normal. Nobody wants to be on dialysis. We have no clue what dialysis. Dialysis is equal to like a death sentence. That's what a lot of people think,
Yes.
that my life is done. And so it's important for me to remind them that, look, once you're on dialysis, it doesn't mean that your whole life will become centered around dialysis. We don't want this.
Right.
We're going to do our best to center dialysis around your life. And that's how it has to be. And so that's why I give them all the different choices. I give them all the different types of dialysis. We discuss about the risk and the benefits of each modality, from home hemodialysis, nocturnal dialysis, intermittent hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis. We discuss about which one might be a more optimal one for his lifestyle. Like, for example, you have some patients who like things right away. So I know that, so they will usually choose home hemo over peritoneal dialysis.
Wow.
Other patients are more laid back. They're afraid of needles. They don't want blood. In that case, we just go ahead with the peritoneal dialysis, and just by also by having them meet with the dialysis nurses. Also, sometimes I make them call or reach out to other dialysis patients just to talk to them. And sometimes that makes them feel more comfortable, and it makes it much easier.
You are, I know you're not my doctor. You're all the way in Tennessee, but I'm just gonna put it like this, Dr. Nader. You're awesome. You're absolutely awesome. It means a whole lot for a patient to have a nephrologist that makes them feel like they care about them, and not just a diagnosis, or not just another number. And hearing how you're saying, okay, let's figure out the type of dialysis that better suits your life, versus this one deals with blood, and this one right here it goes in the peritoneal area. Choose one or you out. What you're saying, it means I'm just sitting here in awe. I mean, you're an absolutely awesome doctor. To show that concern and that care. And Dr. Davis was talking about you and your passion that you have for, like what you said, for nephrology, and the passion that you have for your patients. He said his patients absolutely loves him. And so I'm sitting here listening to you, and as you're talking and the care that you have, man, I mean, hey, I salute you. I honor you. I think you are absolutely awesome. And for your patients, wow, they have an awesome, awesome doctor. I just wanted to say that before we go to the next question, man. I just see that. My time. Okay. I want to ask two more questions. I'm going to see what we got right here. I want to ask two more questions. One question I want to ask is, what are some things that patients can do? Well, no, you already answered that already. We answered that. You talked about, I was going to ask to prevent or prolong kidney failure, but you talked about eating. You talked about the red meat. You talked about the drinking the water. You already answered that question. So let me ask this question here.
I want to just also stress on the salt.
Okay.
The amount of salt is very important, especially with people with more advanced kidney disease, because as your kidney disease progress and you have those lesser number of filters, again, the kidneys will retain to a much higher degree the amount of salt ingested. And that will make it more difficult to get rid of it. And that's why people will start having swelling, high blood pressure, and heart problems. Now, just to put it in perspective, I don't want to do any publicity, but like, for example, a Big Mac,
yes,
or the daily requirement of salt, we recommend usually for it to be less than 2 grams per day. One Big Mac, and that's without the French fries and without all the other things, has already at least 2 to 3 grams of salt in it.
Wow.
So you can imagine how just one small meal has that much amount of salt, how it will make it much more difficult and to control the blood pressure. And so it's really important for the patients to really be mindful about what they're eating, about the quality, about to eat more fresh food, fresh vegetables.
Yeah.
If they cannot, to avoid canned foods. Or if they get canned food, to make sure to wash them a lot to try to get rid as much as possible of the salt. And this is really important. Yeah,
I think that's really good. So I had a question from a lady. I've been boosting this, and so her name is Kim Pearson, and she asks why is drinking water good for your GFR? And she's not on dialysis. She has kidney disease, but she asked me to ask, why is drinking water good for your GFR?
Right. So remember, 98% of our body is made of water.
Okay.
So water is the most precious and the most important element in our humanity, in our person, in our physiology, and in the world. So water is definitely important from a philosophical standpoint too. Now, when people talk about water, there's also two different components as a doctor that I look at. One is hydration, as opposed to volume. And people usually intermix those two elements. So dehydration is very different than hypovolemia, for example. When we talk about hydration status, this is the amount of water that gets inside or outside of the cells of the body. And this is certainly very important for the function of the cells. On the other side, you have the fluid that is between the cells. That is, and especially the fluid that is within the vessels where the blood circulates. Mm-hmm. That is what determines the volume status.
Yes.
And so for the kidneys or for the filters to work, you need to pump. It's like for a car, you need to pump gas into a car for it to work. the same thing. For the filters to work, you need to pump blood into these filters. And by blood, I mean the volume of fluid,
Yes.
which includes water, into those filters for them to work.
Wow.
And so that's why people, for example, who end up in the intensive care unit when they're septic or their blood pressure drops, what happens is as your blood pressure drops, the amount of volume of blood that goes to the kidney also decreases and drops.
Wow.
And so your GFR will decrease.
Yes.
And as soon as you raise the blood pressure of those people, you improve the perfusion of that volume into the kidneys, improving the kidney function. Now, for dialysis patients, and that's the reason why we have different types of IV fluid in the hospital.
Okay.
You see, not all the IV fluid are similar. Some IV fluid, we use them for hydration.
Mm-hmm.
Some IV fluid, we use them for perfusion. So these are two different things. Now, when we talk about pure water, that means water without the elements or the water that is important for hydration.
Okay.
This is what helps maintain the concentration of sodium in our blood level within normal. And this has a lot of regulations. I don't want to get it too complicated, but most of the normal people will have a way to maintain a normal homeostasis of that regular water.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will have an impaired homeostasis where either they're going to be peeing too much of that water, and that's called diabetes insipidus, and they will end up with a lot of problems. Or on the other side, you have a lot of other patients who, on the contrary, they will either drink a lot or they have a tendency to retain more of that pure water inside of their body, and that will lead to water intoxication.
Wow.
And that's when the sodium drops and leads to something called hyponatremia. So it's a very difficult topic, and,
Yes.
and I don't know if I answered her question properly.
You did, but I want to stay on the water. I was going to ask a question, but Elizabeth came. What kind of water do you recommend? I was going to ask, do you recommend the alkaline water? But you got your spring and distilled. So is there a specific type of tap water? Does it matter what water that you drink?
Yeah, the alkaline water, this is a myth, so I wouldn't worry about it. Because once you drink that water, there's no such thing as alkaline water once it gets into your stomach. The pH of your stomach is already close to 2, so the water you're gonna lose all that alkalinity already right in your gastric juice. So drinking alkaline water is not gonna make you more alkaline, and it's not gonna protect your kidneys or have it's more expensive, but I don't think it has any health benefit. At least I do not have the evidence for it. With that said, any kind of water, like any kind of water from the sources should be healthy. Even things like Gatorade, just make sure that it doesn't have a lot of carbohydrates, that it doesn't have a lot of sugar. Now, you also have to be careful in people who have a tendency to have a lot of potassium, to retain potassium. So those people, they need to be careful about also what type of liquids they're drinking. For example, if you're drinking Gatorade, I'm just saying Gatorade, but one of those liquids that they recommend for people who exercise, they do have potassium in it. And so if you drink a lot of those liquids, you will be at risk of retaining more potassium and developing potassium issues if you are at risk for it. So it's something to be mindful about it. Sodas, I also really recommend to avoid sodas. especially dark sodas, and so water is really the best thing. Now tap water should be fine. I honestly don't know how much tap water is safe or not for dialysis patients. It's something that I've always wondered about, but I could never find a good answer, because tap water sometimes has fluoride,
Yeah.
and that can be dangerous for dialysis patients. But it's probably in such a little amount and little concentration that I doubt that it has caused any problems in our dialysis population, at least. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna ask about, but you said no sodas, but I'm still gonna say this anyway because somebody's thinking of like the zeros, the Sprite zeros, the all the sodas now that they make them in with the zero sugars. So I'm talking with Dr. Nadar. So even with the sodas that says zero, still that's not recommended for
I
us.
mean, I think anything in moderation every now and then should be okay,
Okay.
as long as you don't binge drink those sodas.
Okay. I don't know what Celtic salt is, but
Yeah, I have to
Kimberly
look it
asked.
up. I have to look it up too.
Okay, I don't know. That's why I want to bring
I'm not
Kimberly
sure.
out. We'll focus on this, and hopefully on the next show, we'll have some information
See,
about.
I learn a lot from patients.
Yes.
Every
Okay.
time patients ask me questions, I learned a lot also from them by having to go back and research and look to find answers to their questions. It's one way for me also to learn.
Okay. So we're gonna come back to that, but I'm not sure. But we'll come back to that. I got one more question, Dr. Nadar, and this is it dangerous for a dialysis patient to skip treatment because they have no fluid buildup? I hear people say, well, I'm not going today. I'm not going today because I'm at my weight. I'm at my weight. I don't have no extra fluid or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I don't need to go. So is that smart, or is that good? Is that accepted? I wanted to ask that so we can get a final today.
Right. There is, I don't know if you remember the term KT over V. It was part of the lab results that you get every month with dialysis.
Okay.
Now, that KT over V, it's not a very important parameter, but we use it here in the US to give us an idea about the adequacy of dialysis, like whether we are doing adequate dialysis. Now, for example, for intermittent hemodialysis, the goal KT over V is about 1.2 to 1.4. What this number means is that we are cleaning your whole blood 1.2 times per week. So that means your whole blood, that 5 to 6 liters of blood in your body, is going into the dialysis machine and being cleaned from all the toxins 1.2 to 1.4 times per week. Now, regular kidneys, normal kidneys, they clean your whole blood between 20 to 40 times per day.
Wow.
So you can see that even when you do dialysis 3 times per week, for example, in the case of a in-center dialysis, and let's say for 3.5 or 4 hours, you are barely doing 1%
Wow.
of what normal kidneys are doing. And so imagine if you're doing any less than that 1%.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in perspective.
That's good.
The other thing is, a lot of people, when they feel better, when they feel good, they forget, or they tend not to realize or take seriously the impact that other factors can cause. And these are more silent factors that can be more devastating, actually, than fluid, for example.
Wow.
Let's take the example, for example, of phosphorus. When your phosphorus goes up, a lot of patients will have a phosphorus of 7 and 8, and they will not feel anything until it's too late. until they start having calciphylaxis and ulcerations and skin ulcers, and then it will be too late to try to reverse that process.
Wow.
And the same thing was missing dialysis. If you keep missing dialysis treatment, you are putting yourself at risk of having those complications in the future.
Yeah. Wow. I think one thing for me, and I found this out after I got my kidney transplant. So me doing the advocate work, found out that so if you're not doing right with your phosphorus as a male, as a man, but the nurse told, so she was bringing all this to me, that you can lose your reproductive organ as a man because of not your phosphorus. I was like, listen, if you would have told me that when I came, I mean, I wasn't bad, but I'm telling you, if this said, well, if you don't do right, they're gonna cut this off, I would have made sure. I mean, I wouldn't have missed. I mean, my phosphorus would have stayed perfect at all times. So I think these things of having these discussions right now with you, Dr. Nadar, for those who are watching, it means everything, because waiting and like you said before, of waiting to things get really bad. It's I guess the thing that toxins are still in your blood, whether you're at weight or not, right?
Absolutely.
So that's
and remember, dialysis, when we talk about the toxins, toxins come through different shapes and molecules.
yes.
And we don't know, we barely know less than 1% of those toxins. We don't even know what are the toxins. Like, what we know is very little. We have very little knowledge about those toxins, or about the toxins that we can actually measure. But we do know that those toxins, you have what we call the small molecules, a middle molecule, and larger molecules. Now, dialysis, like regular dialysis, it only removes the small molecules.
Wow.
So even with dialysis,
Wow.
by doing 3 times a week and doing everything, we're not even completely removing all the toxins. But removing that 1% of toxins, and more importantly, controlling the fluid and removing the amount of salt, is enough to make you feel better.
Wow. That's absolutely awesome. I have a Doctor, I still have a lot of questions. I don't want to keep you here all night. I want to let me see which one. Whew. Okay, we'll go here because I didn't touch this at all. What are some signs for those who may be watching, not know? They may have family to see. What are some signs of kidney failure?
Right. So kidney disease is a silent disease. And
excuse me, I'm sorry. Kidney disease. You said you don't like. I'm gonna change that myself. So I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm gonna change that from here on out. I'll make sure I change that to kidney disease and no longer kidney failure. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, kidney disease is a silent disease, and so people will not start to have symptoms usually until your GFR starts dropping below 20 milliliter per minute. That's when people will start feeling weaker, more tired. The appetite will become less. You can start, very commonly, people will start having like a abnormal taste. Food tastes differently. And of course, as that GFR declines further, you're going to start having more foggy brain. Your blood pressure will become more difficult to control. You can start having more swelling. The ability to focus and concentrate becomes much lower. And of course, you can have also more dangerous symptoms when you start having trouble breathing, when you start having fluid around your heart, or when your potassium becomes dangerous, and that can start causing heart rhythm problems, and people can die from those abnormalities. But usually the most common symptoms is really the fatigue, the tiredness, also the skin color changes. It's not the
Wow.
same. It doesn't have the same vibrant color. It changes. It becomes more fade. Um, the hair loss, even the nails, you can start having something called half and half nail. So, so on the nail, you will see. Um, so if you look at the nail, usually the white, you have like a moon-shaped white. It's usually in the lower part of the at the base of the nail. People who have kidney disease will actually half of their nails will be white.
Wow.
So that's also another sign. Um, so typically these are the symptoms. Now the other issue is that a lot of people, because of denial, sometimes they get used to having those symptoms, and they
Wow.
consider it as something normal, especially when it has been going on for a long time, or if it's been more gradual. Like people will tell you, yeah, I have a good appetite, but their family, they know that compared to 2 3 years ago, their appetite is definitely not the same.
Wow.
So these are the more subtle changes that can happen. Yeah, but again, for me, these are not enough to start dialysis just based on having some of those symptoms.
But they need that. That's a point to where they can say, okay, I need to get checked.
Exactly.
That's the
Yeah.
main thing. And I need to get checked.
Ideally, I want them to come before that.
Yes.
That's ideally. So
Well, that's really good. I'm not gonna. You know what we do? We'll put this on to the next. I want to have a doctor each month to come on and to share, or a nurse to come on each to share. I do thank you so much, Dr. Nader. Thank you so much for coming, and
anytime.
I appreciate you so much. I want to give a shout out to Elizabeth Sterling, Candace Cathcart, Verna Johnson, Kimberly Ellis. I want to give a shout out to Jonathan again, and all others who've been really instrumental. And I've been seeing all the things, the comments and everything on the side. I do want to say this because this came up from Elizabeth about Celtic salt. It's known to help with hydration. So that's one thing, like you said, to ask with another kidney patient. So I appreciate you, Elizabeth, for that. And so I do want to say this before we go.
So you see, salty fluid are important for people who are, for example, someone who has a lot of a bad diarrhea, or people who have ileostomies or colostomies and they lose a lot of salt through those bags. So these are the people who will benefit from salt and water, because the salt and the water will form a certain concentration, and that will lead to something called a tonicity. And that tonicity is what will pull the fluid and allow that volume to be maintained in a patient. But the problem is people who have kidney disease, having too much salt will then become an issue.
Well, one thing I want to add with that as well, because even though, like myself, even though we have a kidney transplant, we still have kidney disease. And I think sometimes, we as kidney transplant patients, because we're no longer on dialysis, sometimes we can feel that we can go do eating all those different things as we did before. But we still have kidney disease, and it's still important. And I'm asking, is it still important, even with us, that we still watch all salt intake and sodas and all those different things? Because again, we have a kidney, but we still have kidney. We still have kidney disease. Am I right, wrong?
No, absolutely. And if you want, what I also, something important that I tell my patient is, when you get a kidney transplant, remember when we spoke about the staging of CKD?
Yes.
So getting a kidney transplant will get you close to having a CKD stage 2. So it's almost like any normal individual. Doing dialysis, when you do intermittent hemodialysis, like in-center dialysis or peritoneal dialysis, that will get you to someone who's equivalent to a CKD stage 4.
Ah,
Doing home hemodialysis will get you closer to someone with a CKD stage 3. So
wow.
that's just to give you a perspective.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the kidney transplant, yes, now even though the kidney transplant will get you as close to someone with no kidney problem, so similar to someone with CKD stage 2, you still have to be very careful for several reasons. One is that this kidney is not a natural kidney, so it's not in a position, uh, it's not in its natural position. The connection to that artery is also at an angle that is not natural, and
Okay.
so you are at risk of having certain issues that normal kidneys will not have. Like, for example, if the blood pressure drops too low, that kidney may actually, you may hurt the kidney.
Wow.
Or if the blood pressure goes too high, then you're certainly going to damage
Yes.
that kidney. The other thing is, remember, that kidney also has a lesser number of filters. And so those filters are also probably overworking with time. And so that's even more of a reason to more stress
Yes.
on it. Another thing is a lot of the anti-rejection medication that we commonly use nowadays, like specifically calcineurin inhibitors. These they do prevent rejection, but at the expense of slow damage to the kidney.
Wow.
And so that's why usually kidney transplant, on average, they will last about 15 to 20 years on average,
Okay.
because of that slow process of damage to the kidneys because of the calcineurin inhibitor. Also, some of those medications may cause you not to be able to retain water as properly, so you can become more dehydrated or becoming more hypovolemic. And so that's also why it's even more important to drink plenty of water, especially in summer when it gets hot. It's very important to stay well hydrated. Also, the anatomy of that kidney can predispose you to have, some people may be more predisposed to have urine infection, especially a lot of the dialysis patient, uh, when they stop peeing for many years, their bladder may not be fully functional after transplant, or it may take longer for it to relearn how to void completely. And so some people may have some reflux or of urine, and can be more predisposed to have urine infections.
Wow.
So these are the things that are still very important after transplant to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
But these are little things. Like, now we're talking about them and it seems complicated, but trust me, these are little things that, and you know it.
Yes.
You're doing all this, like, and you're doing great. So
Thank you, sir. And I think, we shared a whole lot tonight. You talked about a whole lot tonight, but I want to go back to what you said from the beginning. It's about living your life. That's what you said. You may be on dialysis, or you may have kidney disease, whatever. And you said don't come to a place to where you're blaming yourself and putting yourself in a hole or becoming depressed. But learn to live your life. I think that means everything. I know we said a lot of things, and some of the things we talked about was heavy. I still got more questions. We'll put it on the next end. Hopefully you'll come back. I mean, I'm inviting you now to come back. We'll talk about it.
absolutely, I'll be more than happy
To come back again and to share some more, because I do have some more questions. But I wanted to end the show with life. I wanted to end it, because that's why we're here. To make sure that you pay attention to your body, pay attention to your numbers, pay attention to whether it's your sugars and GFRs, BUNs, creatinine numbers, everything. Every month that you, if you're on dialysis, when you do the blood work, the paperwork that you get back, all the vitals, they mean something. And sometimes, we may take those sheets and it'll say good, bad, in between, whatever, and we just roll on and not pay attention to it. but those numbers mean everything about our lives, because you talked about potassium, you talked about phosphorus, you talked about all these different things, and those numbers mean a lot. So I want to say that to all the patients and those who are watching, it means everything. It means everything. It's all about life, and I just wanted to say that. So, Dr. Nader, is there anything else that you would like to share before we close out? Is there anything you want to say to the people?
Again, I want to tell to the patients, like, love yourself, and don't feel that, like, don't let anything put you down. Don't feel don't let anything or anyone make you feel down or put you down. On the contrary, be positive. Look at things, uh, about, like, think about life and love, and be positive, and try to challenge yourself. Like, you're not doing it for the doctor or for someone else. You're doing it for you. Challenge every day yourself. Find the motivation. Motivate yourself to do it. You can do it. There's no reason for you to feel down. Just stay positive, be up, and enjoy life. And no matter how hard it is, and it can be, there's always a glimpse of hope. And always find that glimpse, hold on to it, and keep fighting.
Man, that is really good advice. Thank you, man. I can't wait to have you come back, Dr. Nader. I just want to say to everyone, please, if you would, follow us on Dialysis Is Not Your Life. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all of that, YouTube channel. Every Monday, I'm back here every Monday, 10:15 Eastern Standard Time. It's called Motivation with Fred. And I'm motivating the same as Dr. Nader was saying. It's about living, loving yourself. It's about life, still going after your hopes and dreams, your desires, understanding that dialysis is not a death sentence, but it actually gives you a second chance at life. So my question is, what are you doing with the second chance? And so that's why we're here tonight. And so next week, quick announcement, we'll have Tamara Walker. She'll be here. She's from Georgia. She's going to share her story as well. So the same bat time, same bat channel. Those know about Batman back in the day. So we're just so excited. And again, Dr. Nader, I just want to tell you, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I just want to tell you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred. And I really enjoyed it. And I'm very happy to be with you.
All right. Well, until next time, Dr. Ned, don't go anywhere yet. We're gonna close, but I want to share something with you before you leave. All right, we'll be back. Thank you, everyone. They're saying thank you, Dr. Nader. Find the silver lining. Great information. Thank you. Good to know. So you get some good feedback for tonight. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. You guys have a blessed one. God bless you, and we'll be back on Thursday, 6:30 Eastern Standard. All right.